to start by telling a very quick story. I have a beautiful little son whose name is Leo, and he's 6, and he's my boyfriend. I love him. And at night, we go to bed, and we have our little talk time. Monday night, we're going to bed, and he says to me, "Mama, I learned a very bad word. I'm going to need 1,000,000 billion free passes to tell you this word." And I said, "I cannot give you 1,000,000 billion free passes. That's too expensive. I will give you 5. You can tell me the word." He says, "Okay." F-U-C-K. So I say, "Leo, that is a very bad word. Where did you learn this word?" And he said, "Liam." So I sit there quietly, reviewing my options. Option number 1 is turn to this delicious little boy, squeeze him so hard, and yell at the top of my lungs, "You will never play with Liam again. You are never to use that word. That's what bad people do. You're grounded forever." But I know Liam. Liam is 8. He just moved in across the street. He's from Australia, and he's impossibly cool. And I guarantee Liam has a lot more words to teach my son Leo. So I know that's going to fail abysmally, right? This is the beginning of the next stage, and I understand that I'm a mom. So what I decided to do instead is appeal to Leo's kinder, gentler nature. And we talk about certain words and how certain words make people feel badly, and he doesn't want people to feel badly. So fast forward, this really happened on Monday night. 6 hours later, I'm asleep. I'm a classic person to wake up and start stressing over something. Sometimes I'm aware of what I'm going to stress about, sometimes I'm not. And sit straight up in bed, sort of afflicted with this question, when did the quantified self become the quantified patient? And I lie in bed and I start taking notes. For 2 reasons. 1, quantified selfers, by definitions, I would argue, are not patients because they choose to do this. It's like loving a band or joining a community, right? They want to do this. They're in. They're tracking things about themselves that they find interesting and fascinating. They're celebrating the beautiful parts of themselves. And in the process, they happen to be getting healthier, right? But that's not necessarily the goal. That wasn't how it's set out. Patients, on the other hand, that's not a choice. Does anyone here know anyone who ever chose to be a patient? Being a patient is something that happens to you. It's hospital gowns, it's getting weighed, it's being defined by your illness. And so I think patient is not a nice word. And I think as an industry, and I know many of you are going to disagree with me, and that's okay, we have to stop using the word patient. And further, I would say, anytime you find yourself using it, stop. And ask yourself, should you? And is that the way that the person you're describing would want to be described? Or in fact, would they want to say that I'm a triathlete, or I'm a kick-ass mom, or I make bad choices, but I love who I am, or whatever it might be. So that's my sort of call to arms. What I want to spend time talking about today is slightly different, but it builds on that same concept, which is we really don't need more patients at all. It would be okay if we never, ever, ever had another patient again until the end of time. What we do need is more quantified selfers. But to Michael's point, the very sort of humbling thing about this room tonight is the vast majority of people out there in the world, they don't know we're here, they don't know how much we care, and they would think we're weird because they're out making bad decisions at 7:30 at night, because that's what most of us do. That's what I would be doing. I only didn't have a glass of wine because I didn't want to, sound like an idiot when I was up here, but I make a series of bad decisions on a regular basis. Oh, you sounded very good, so good for you. So the company that I work with, I can tell you guys openly, I don't understand doctors. I don't understand how doctors make decisions. I don't understand how things get done on the Hill. I can't hold myself up as a role model for great behavior. What I can tell you is that the organization that I work with, over the last 13 years, has had over 900 million interactions with real people about their health. And those people's lives out there in the world, they don't revolve around their health at all. They revolve around things like, they hate their boss, or they're not getting enough action, or they're caring for an aging parent who's 94 and is dying of Alzheimer's, right? This is what real people struggle with on a daily basis. And when we reach out to them and try and get them engaged, let's talk about your diabetes, they don't want to talk about their diabetes. They wish they could talk about their diabetes. It's at the end of a long list of priorities. So I think the question for us in this room is not, how do we talk more to each other about each other and how much we love healthcare and everyone should, take better care of themselves, because they won't. It's how do we actually get out there and seduce ourselves more quantified selfers? So my company has not specifically studied how you get people to get engaged in a Fitbit. We probably will soon, but we haven't specifically studied that. However, on behalf of ONC and in support of Blue Button, we did do some really cool research about probably 4 months ago now about how do people think about online health data and how can we, in understanding that process, develop marketing materials that would actually get real people out living real lives that sadly don't revolve around their health to get more engaged, which I would consider sort of a step one to becoming a quantified selfer. So I thought, okay, well maybe I can share that with you guys because maybe that will have value and maybe that's something that you can take away and think about. So 3 quick things that we've learned, again, always the hard way at Eliza. We very rarely come up with these ideas on our own. It's usually we come up with something and we try it, and to that feedback loop, it's bad. But because we have all this feedback from people, we learn in real time that it's bad and we adjust. So 3 things that we humbly strive to do on a regular basis. 1 is use their language. Use real people's language. Number 2 is address their barriers. And number 3 is solve the problems they want solved. This is my favorite. If you want to sell something, right, what's the number 1 way to do that? Sell something people want to buy, right? So the healthcare space is solving all these problems that real people don't care about. They go back to the list that I said before. That's the stuff that they care about. So I want to give you 3 quick examples, and then I'll go into the case study about language. So we've learned the hard way over the years. This is a very simple one. Diabetes. Well, that's a pretty obvious term. Obviously, your doctor would tell you you have diabetes. If you have claims for diabetes, well, we can tell you that a not insignificant percentage of people living in the South, if you talk to them about their diabetes, they say, oh, no, I don't have diabetes. What we learned over time is what they have is a touch of sugar or sugar diabetes. So you can't talk to them about their diabetes because they won't get it, right? And if you just keep insisting on saying diabetes, you will upset them and they will ignore you. The second one about barriers is one of my favorites. So if you stopped somebody on the street and said, talk to me about, stop somebody in the healthcare system and said, tell me about colon cancer screenings, why don't people get them? Oh, it's cost, oh, it's access, oh, it's fear of finding out the results. You know what, for 30% of women, believe it or not, it's because they don't think women get colon cancer, which I just have to say as an aside is kind of funny. Right? Like, think about what that means about women think about men. Like, we don't have colons, guys do. That's like a guy thing, right? Like, that's not a problem that we women have. And then the next one is solving the problems that real people want solved. So we did some work on behalf, as you guys know, steerage is a bad word, but it's a true thing. And a lot of organizations out there are trying to get individuals to make decisions about what doctors that they go to. And so an organization came to us and said, help us figure out what people really like about their doctors. This is what we think you're going to find, they said. People want extended hours, wait times, appointments when needed, and online PHI access. Not at all. That's not what people want at all. You know what people want when you talk to them in big numbers? This is really basically bedside manner and an elegant environment. They want to trust their doctor. They want their doctor to talk to them like a human, right? And they don't want to go into a place that looks like crap. Period, end of story. Very basic. So these are the problems that real people actually want solved. And I bet if you go around and talk to most doctors, they don't think that that's the issue. And they're trying to distract themselves with all the technology. We have plenty of technology. We've had plenty of technology. That's not the issue. So let's go back to this idea of how do you get someone to fall in love with their data, their online data specifically. And again, this example is Blue Button, which if you don't know about it, you should Google it. It's Todd Parks, liberate the data. Let's get everybody access to their data, which is step 1. But if you don't do anything interesting with that data, like Google's PHR, you will fail because people don't just like to look at their data. So the first thing we want to do is say, okay, well, what is the terminology that real people use when they think about health information kept by your doctor or insurance company? And you guys can't read this, but I will tell you what it says. Basically, records, health records, medical records. That's it. What is missing from this list? PHR, EMR, PHI, HIPAA, right? All the things that we say all day, every day, nobody out there uses those words ever, ever. Oh, and you'll also notice, I think this is important because I think branding really, really, really matters. WebMD is up there. That's such a strong brand that some people were like, oh, data, health data, that's WebMD, right? That's a strong brand. That's a Kleenex brand. That's what we all are striving to be. The next thing we asked people was around this notion of teachable moments. So we have learned over the years, again, to the theme that people aren't sitting around waiting to be lectured about their health, that there are these moments when people sort of, prairie dog, they pick their head up for a second and they're open and they're willing to discuss something, right? They'll talk to you about their health. A new diagnosis is something that we all know is a time that you've got a window. A health event, a heart attack, window. Small window, incidentally, but it is a window. So we ask people in your own terms, tell us what would make you think that you might be interested in this online health record thing. Fascinating, all around transitions. Well, if I had a new doctor, switching doctors, new providers, switching providers, new medication, changing medication, an event, and I can tell you from other research that we've done, when you talk about these transitions, it's also transitions into your personal life, right? So going through a divorce, or somebody dying, or changing jobs. These are other times when people are interested in this stuff. So the next thing we wanted to look at, and there's a lot more data here, and I'm happy, I have already promised one of my dear friends that I will share all of this with him, but there's a lot more data here that I can show you. I'm trying to do it quickly because I'm already getting the you better hurry up lady sign. We wanted to look at, okay, well, one way to understand how to market is to understand the spectrum. So who are basically our super users? The people who are most likely to be the ones we can seduce into taking these next steps, into falling in love with their data and hopefully making different decisions. And on the other side, who are the people who are so far from this, right? We have Rodrigo here from IDEO, and I think IDEO does a lot of understanding these spectrums and really sort of trying to serve both when you're thinking about good marketing strategies. So on the right would be the characteristics of people who don't access their health information ever at all, in paper, online, doesn't matter, don't care. And then going down the left are the variables that we compare these two populations against. And as you would expect, these potential super users are younger, they've gone to college, they have more money. If they have a question, they believe in the healthcare system. They ask a professional if they've got a question, right? They don't necessarily talk to family or friends. They're the 50% of the population that owns an iPhone. They're early adopters. We were asking a lot of questions about trying to get at sort of the technology adoption curve. These are early adopters. And most interestingly, they are online bankers. So this privacy and security thing, we're always looking for hooks. We want to know the moment that you might be open to us, and then we want to know what's the hook that might get you to pay attention to this. What's a validating thing you've already agreed to do that maybe we can use to suck you in and do this. So I'm going to show you very, very quickly 2 case studies that we developed. Again, just for fun, right? These are just for fun. The first is, let's think about this person who is a super user. They online bank already, they're highly wired with their phone, and they talk to friends and family through social media all the time. Well, we know by the data that this person is much more likely to be an early adopter, and that this person's much more likely to regularly do online banking. Now, we want to find a moment where this person might be open to thinking differently. Okay, well, all of us in the healthcare system know when somebody has a new doctor or a new medication or a new health plan, right? So we could use that as the moment to reach out. Okay, let's look quickly at what most people in the healthcare system would do if they wanted to get this person to go online and look at their data. They would probably send them a letter. It would happen, any old time of the year. It would be the same letter to everybody, all at once, right? And look at those words. You have access to your PHI via a secure EMR. That's actually not a joke. We really do get things like this from our customers all the time, and I love them madly, but this is how they think, right? So this is how they think everyone else should think. So we wanted to propose an alternative, and this was actually presented at the White House. It's a little bit naughty, a little bit racy, but you guys all know Jonathan Bush, so I don't feel badly at all about doing anything crazy. It would be a visual stimulation. A postcard, something online. Yo mama is so plugged in, I wouldn't let her within 20 feet of the swimming pool. That's the attention-grabbing front piece. Then when you flip it over, if it's not online, what's the point? Meet the blue button. From online banking to checking your credit score, you're already managing and tracking areas of your life online. Think how much more connected you'd be if you could access your health data the same way. So it's hooking into something with which they are already familiar to sort of be like, of course you're going to do this, right? You're greasing the wheels. The other population that we wanted to look at quickly is folks who are having a hard time, folks who have multiple conditions, their life is kind of stressful, people who are probably hungry for support. Sadly for us, they're just not thinking of that support necessarily as going online and doing the things that we wish that they would do. So we know that people who are sicker are much more likely to be interested in their health information, much more likely to go online, but we also know that they're older, and we know if you're older, you will be slower on the technology adoption curve. So then we kept thinking, okay, well, who will care about this person who's older, who would influence them? Well, how about the person who's taking care of them? Okay, let's go after the caregiver. Well, we also know that caregivers right now, many of them are in the sandwich generation, which you all know is somebody who's caring for a child, children, as well as an aging parent. Right now, that's about 1 in 8 families. It's slated to become 1 in 4. It's an exhausting reality for people. It's a disease, basically, and I think we should care for that as much as we care for diabetes. So let's say what we're going to do is target individuals that we know because of their age group and their where they are in life that they're probably caregivers of somebody, And let's pick a time of the year that's probably uniquely stressful for them. Well, if you're in the sandwich generation, that's back to school. So, oh, and one other quick thing is we know that these folks have lots of issues, and the more vulnerable you are, the more life stress you have, the more likely you are to be willing to try anything because nothing is working. So we could do this, again, the exact same letter with terrible language, or mom's medication list, check. Back to school forms, check. 50 Shades of Grey, check my iPad. I can say that, even though we all know what that book was about. I read all of them, because it was number 1, 2, and 3 on the bestseller list, right? Kyle challenged me to mention something racy, and I'm mentioning that, but I can because it was number 1, 2, and 3 on the bestseller list actually for a year. When you flip it over, you've got a lot going on. Blue Button can help. Caring for all the people in your life and trying to manage all their health records can be overwhelming. Accessing your health data online can help reduce this stress by putting everything at your fingertips. It may even leave you with some time to blow off a little steam. Right? So we're appealing, we're being cheeky, a little bit flirty, talking about something that somebody might actually pay attention to. And the last thing I want to say very, very quickly, which I think is very fascinating, is even as we get all this big data, even as we think we're doing a better job understanding what makes somebody tick, which I would argue we don't, because what makes people tick is actually these very, very, the life choices, where you are in your life, again, not revolving around your health. But even if you do that well, being able to map messaging to that is a very different question. So even if in the end we're extraordinary at putting these people next to these people, next to these people, next to these people, how are you getting the underpants? I love that thing. I love South Park. Getting through that terrible place in the middle so you actually affect people's behavior, which is what we all care about. I know, by the way, the nice thing is if you do that, you will get more profit. Requires that people pay attention to you and make better decisions. And how many people in this room always make good decisions, even though we are all, much more likely to than most people? So I will just leave you with that one thought and close out by saying, use their language. As you are trying to do this and building tools, never forget to use their language, solve the problems they want solved, address your barriers, and I would argue, remember that patient is a 4-letter word. Thank you.